Hello everyone and welcome to another New World video. My name's Brian if you happen to be new to the channel, but I have to say thank you guys so much. You pushed the channel to over 17,000. So 17,020 y'all. If you're coming in and you're coming back and checking out this video, thank you so much for being a part of this grand experiment. I love making videos and I love talking about New World, and that's what you're going to get here. I also believe heavily in transparency, so I'm going to share my stats with you guys. So as I like to dive into the stats, and that's what this video is going to be. New World Rise of the Angry Earth has beaten Brimstone Sands. Now, I've seen some pushback when I stated that online, and I'd like to go ahead and start actually sharing and breaking down the numbers with you. Now, at the time of this recording, the new 24-hour peak is what we're going to be going off of. It was at 77,642. Now, what I like to go and look at the history here is if we go back to October 2022, when Brimstone Sands launched, you can see the number of 69,605, a higher player peak than Brimstone. But you might say, but what about November, 137,755? That is the fresh start server experience building off the hype of Brimstone. And since they're not doing a fresh start server experience, I don't think we're going to see this kind of number repeat itself. But what I like to see, what really I think is a good sign of health, is that month over month, the history here, we're seeing that beautiful ebb and flow. And you're going to see this with games as a service. And right now, I think overall, there's a lot of fatigue with games as a service to see so many people reinterested in New World, to see them coming back, buying the expansion. It's one of the top trending games on Steam right now. I think that does speak volumes, not only to the content that they've been putting in, but to the work that they've been bringing to the game, to each season, both in quality of life and so much more. Now, there's still lots of work to do, because when we start talking about this number alone, I think one of the things that is keeping it subdued into a degree is not just marketing, but it's the server architecture. And that's why when I look at Season 4, what is to come here in the next 60 days, that's what they're targeting. Season 4 looks to bring in that cross-server expedition, cross-server arena, and those features alone will help distribute some of the player population. But more work is done since the beginning. This is 2023, and when people start hitting those login queues, it's so much easier to go play other incredible games. So it's not to say that the game and the expansion isn't without its faults, but congrats to the team. They've done an incredible job. So let's break down the numbers. What are we talking about? What's the player population in this case? And we have some interesting data ranges. So how you figure out player population is an industry standard calculation. You can take the concurrent multiplied by 7 to 11, and you're going to get a range. And the range right now for New World is roughly 494 monthly active users. That's the low end. The high end puts it right at 854,000 users, monthly active users in this case, and that is quite a range. Now, what we can start to look at when it comes down to this player number, we can actually start to see that within New World, it's now, at the time of this recording, the 20th most played game. That's going to go up and down depending on the day, but you can see from the chart that it is clearly trending upwards. And then you could start to look at another interesting factor, the hours played, roughly at 15 million. Now, if we look at the 15 million and we do some simple math on it, we're actually going to get a number around 400,000 monthly active users, which is a little bit outside of the normal scaled range, but that's also factoring in we don't have a full month of the hours played data. We're only looking at last week of the hours played, so this in and of itself isn't a good calculation. Be sure to check back here to the channel once we have a full month of that data to really kind of dive into. But I think it's overall interesting. If we look at Brimstone Sands in comparison, the low end was 450,000 and the high end was 765,000 players. So New World for October clearly has edged out Brimstone, which I think is interesting considering that Rise of the Angry Earth is a paid expansion, where Brimstone was, I'm going to say, a free expansion at this point, because content-wise, scale-wise, I feel like they are pretty much on par. And going forward, as we look to October of 2024, I would expect a new expansion, a new weapon, a new zone, and that kind of setup. They could always surprise us, and I'm always game for surprises, but I think overall that we're starting to see kind of really what this game is going to be and how it's going to trend both positively and negatively. Now, if we go back to the big chart here, if we look at kind of the low end, what is the lowest end for the player population, and we can see it does hit into the 11s for the average players. That in and of itself is what I would consider the floor. So we're going to be watching to see, does the floor fall out of this game at some point, or does it generally maintain an average of 25,000 to 34,000 concurrents on average, which is a decent population. That's one of the things that I push back on with the conversation online. A lot of people love to throw out dead game. Well, it's interesting because the game is doing, I think, quite well for itself. I just have to be somewhat slightly amused. But let's jump into what people are saying. Little Sister says, after a break, I started a new character. Last time I put around 250 hours and got bored by the gypsum and the gearing issues. I'm having a blast now and I'm totally hooked on this game. Game feels great now. And that's really exciting to read, especially when it comes to the gearing. However, I doubt that you've put another 250 hours into the expansion. If you have, tip of the freaking hat. I don't know where you found that kind of time. But ultimately, people will naturally burn out. They'll need little breaks. And that's where I think when I talk about ebbs and flows, that in and of itself is going to be something fascinating. Now, Blade Rabbit says, if you told me 2 years ago that New World would beat out Lost Ark, I'd smack you. I thought this was an interesting comment, so I thought, let's go take a look at Lost Ark. Right now, trending at number 27. You can see a peak concurrent of 55,000, and this takes it into, and what's really fascinating is obviously the 26 million hours. So that's going to be something I'm going to be interested in seeing how New World shakes out in terms of its total hours. But we just bring up the charts. Actually, since August, Lost Ark is also trending up. Ebbs and flows. Players will play. They will take breaks. And then the question ends up being is, how do you invite players back in? That's not a personal invitation. That's not AGS calling you up and saying, hey, come back. It's saying, hey, we have some new content. We have a new expansion. And I think ultimately we're seeing this is the Final Fantasy XIV model. It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to step away from the game, and it's okay to return. And you're not going to be punished for doing any of that. And if you want to stick around, we've got content, we've got seasons, we've got things that you can do and ultimately have a good fun time. But I'd be curious as to your thoughts, especially as this stacks up against Lost Ark. In 2024, other two more MMOs, coming from Amazon, Blue Protocol and Throne of Liberty. Those are two games that I'm also covering. If you guys like my kind of coverage, my approach to content, you can go check it out. If you guys want Ginger Prime or Blue Protocol Central for more information on all of those. Now, as a final thought before we wrap up the video, if you guys are in the Dallas area, I'm coming to the Dallas Comedy Club on October the 13th. That's 1 week, 5 days from now. It's going to be a great show, 7 p.m. I'll try and include a link in the description if you guys are interested in checking out the comedy scene and so much more. So that's going to be it for the video, guys. Hopefully you got something good out of it. I appreciate you guys all being here, and I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one, but until then, take care.